Cool. So once again, thank you for joining us and welcome to the Artfully webinar. So Artfully is one of Fractured Atlas's newest programs, and it derived from a few years ago when our members told us that they needed a ticketing software that was easy to use, fairly priced, and intuitive. So when we began to develop Artfully, we decided to hold what we call community design sessions in cultural hubs across the country, where we talked with people from all across the cultural ecosystem to find out what their needs are for a ticketing software. And as I said, our members overwhelmingly told us that they were looking for something that was easy, flexible, affordable, and that ideally would also work with their Fractured Atlas membership. So in October of 2013, we launched Artfully with 3 modules for ticketing, taking and tracking donations, as well as understanding who your biggest fans are. We call that feature the Artfully CRM, which stands for Customer Relations Management. So in this webinar, we're going to talk about each module separately, and there will be time to ask questions within each section. So the first place we're going to start is with ticketing. So one of the things that Artfully is designed to be is flexible so that organizations can kind of tailor it to their needs as much as possible. So Artfully gives you 4 different ways for you to sell tickets. So they can be sold through a storefront that's on the Artfully website. They can be sold on an organization's website through what we call a widget or a WordPress plugin. We have a private sales interface that we call the box office. It's for selling tickets at the door. And then we also have another sales interface called the Sales Console, which is designed for taking orders over the phone, kind of potentially more complex orders that an organization might receive. All right. So I just want to check in. Can everybody see the Artfully storefront on the page here? Just want to check in and make sure everybody can see it correctly. Can everybody see the slide that says the 3 penny opera? Great.
Yeah. Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, so what we're looking at is the Artfully storefront. So every time an organization creates an event in Artfully, a storefront is automatically created for you. These storefronts have a unique URL that you can share with your patrons via social media, email. You can link to it on your own site. When the patron arrives, they'll see the show dates with your ticket types, as well as information about the event, along with a map to your venue and contact information in case your patrons need to reach you. So your patron would select the show dates and the tickets that they wanted to purchase. And then once the patron adds the tickets to the cart, they'll be taken to checkout. So once the patron goes to checkout, she would enter her billing information and checkout. We'll get to touch more on this later in the presentation, but for Fractured Atlas fiscally sponsored projects and 501c3 organizations, it's possible for patrons to add a donation on top of a ticket order. So that's one of the benefits of using Artfully as a Fractured Atlas sponsored project. So that's the storefront. It's probably what most people using Artfully use to sell tickets. Most organizations link to their storefront from their own sites. There is another way that an organization can sell tickets, and that's through the widget or WordPress plugin. This is a bit of code that you can install on your website, and once the code is installed, it can be a little hard to see in this image, but on the right-hand side where it says tickets, right in the middle of the page, you'll see there are show dates that appear. With the widget installed, you can click on the show dates. The patron, similar to the storefront, would select their tickets, and once the patron does that, a shopping cart will pop up from the bottom of the screen, and the patron can check out right on your site. Okay, Tyler, do you not see kind of where it says tickets, or are you not seeing the slide with ETC? Oh, you got it? Okay. So then the patron would be able to check out directly from your site. So that's the widget and WordPress plugin. It's something that sometimes you may need the help of a web designer to get installed. Beyond that, that is another option to sell tickets through Artfully directly on your own site. So now, for an organization that has been selling tickets online, that's great for those advanced sales. And then for tickets that are sold at the door, you'll need a different interface for that. So we've built an interface called the box office that's really designed to sell tickets as quickly as possible at the door, kind of when you have the least amount of time to spare. So this is a sales channel that is specifically made for selling tickets at the door, and it's only available to people in your organization. So you would select the tickets using the plus and minus buttons at the top of the page, and then you select the payment type, and then you can check the patron out right there. It's designed so that you can do it as quickly as possible when you don't have a lot of time at the door. And then finally, we have the sales console. So this is kind of our newest addition to the Artfully sales channels. The sales console is also a place to sell tickets for people within your own organization to use. So if you had a patron calling on the phone, needing to purchase tickets and also, say, purchase a season pass to your show, this would be where you would want to go to do it. It uses a tiled interface for each action, but the checkout is very similar to the box office. Now, every patron who purchases a ticket to your show will ultimately be added to what's called the door list. The door list contains every person who's purchased tickets to the show, and each order will be represented as a line in the door list. We've designed it to kind of be the other side of the coin of the box office. So you'll notice at the top of the page, we're looking at the door list here, but if you click sell tickets, you'll actually flip back and forth between the door list and the box office for selling tickets. Right now, we have Jason's order highlighted, and none of his tickets have been checked in yet. But you can also partially check in an order. So you can see that each ticket that Jason has purchased is a line item. Okay. Each ticket that Jason purchased is a line item on the door list. But if we look at Alessandra up here, because one of the tickets on her order has been checked in, it is kind of like this half moon shape. Anybody else who has not been checked in will have a white bubble. And as people get checked in, this progress bar fills up so you know how many more people are set to arrive. And then it's also possible to download the door list as both a CSV and as a PDF. So it's very easy to have a paper copy as a contingency plan. All right, so I've just advanced the slide deck to what is now an order confirmation. This is what people will see when they purchase tickets. I'm very sorry for Tyler's not seeing the slides advancing in the way that they should. I'm very sorry, folks. If you aren't seeing the slide, I'll try to describe the slide as I advance to them, but if you don't see it, please let me know and I'll do my best to get them to come up. Thank you all for bearing with me on that. So this is what patrons will see when they purchase tickets to their event. They get an email confirmation showing them what the ticket order is for, listing out the tickets purchased, along with a map to the event and potentially any donations the patron added at checkout. On the right-hand side, this is a new feature that we have added for what we call print-at-home scannable tickets. These are these come to the patron in the form of a PDF with each ticket laid out. And we have created an Artfully app for iPhones. It's currently in the iOS App Store only at the moment. That will let you scan the QR code on the patron's ticket to check them in. And the app also functions as a mobile door list. And I'm just going to, on this next slide, which I hope everybody can see, you'll see an example of the Artfully app with the scanning interface used to scan tickets. And on the right-hand side, you'll see the mobile door list. So even if the patron doesn't have the tickets on hand, you can still very quickly check them in. Awesome. So that kind of covers the ticketing aspects of Artfully. I'm happy to answer anybody's questions. Tyler, I see that you've got a couple here. As far as whether or not the widget works with Wix sites, that would be something you could potentially use the widget for, but it would probably require the services of a web developer to get it to work. And we've seen kind of mixed results from people getting the widget to work with Wix sites. Some people have done it, but they've often required to do it with a web designer. And at the moment, the Artfully app is only in the Apple App Store right now. It is not in the Google Play Store for Android phones. All right. Does anybody else have any questions you want to ask?
Nope, all good.
Great. Noelle, did you have any questions?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, great. All right. I'm going to try to advance here. So the next aspect of Artfully that we're going to talk about is taking donations through the software. So Artfully has been designed for both 501c3 charity organizations as well as Fractured Atlas fiscally sponsored projects. They work slightly differently, but both can be used to track the donations that come into your organization. For the 501c3 organizations, we need a copy of the IRS determination letter. And then Fractured Atlas fiscally sponsored projects actually have their donations synchronized right into Artfully. So at the moment, it's possible to add a donation to a ticket purchase. Donations can also be made on your own site through the widget or WordPress plugin. 501c3 organizations can manually log donations, and Fractured Atlas sponsored projects will actually have their donations synchronized through Artfully when they're logged through your My Fiscal sponsorship page. Can everybody see the Artfully storefront checkout page? It should have an arrow pointing to the donation button. Okay, so it is possible. Oh, currently you're seeing Fusebox. That's odd. Okay, great. Noel's back. So when you're signed in to your Artfully account as a fiscally sponsored project or as a 501c3 organization, patrons will have the option to add a tax-deductible donation to a ticket order. This would be added to the cart here. So if this would be added as if a patron donated an additional $10, that would show up as an additional $10 donation once they click the Add Donation button. Oh, okay. Noel, you were seeing Fusebox. I always forget because this piece of software is also called Fuse Meeting. The Fusebox example, which you should see here, is an example of an organization using the Artfully widget to take donations through their own site. So by typing in a donation into the field and clicking the Make Donation button, that shopping cart would pop up and allow the organization to check out right on Fusebox's website. A 501c3 organization will have the option to manually log donations within Artfully. This is not something that Fractured Atlas sponsored projects would do. Instead, the sponsored projects would have their donations automatically synchronized to their Artfully account. So right now we're looking at an example of someone making a tax-deductible donation to a Fractured Atlas sponsored project. And once that donation has been made, the record of that donation will automatically be visible in Artfully. So this is what we'll touch in. Let me see the Artfully logo. Oh. So Melissa, you only see the Artfully logo? That's a little odd. That should be kind of at the beginning of the presentation. Okay. So once a patron makes the donation, the record of that donation will automatically synchronize to Artfully. And this is something that we'll cover a little more in the section on the Artfully CRM, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. 501c3 organizations will can also get a donation-only storefront. This is a feature that is only available to 501c3s at this time. But this is also something to keep in mind, that Artfully is often one of Fractured Atlas's programs that organizations use throughout their time at Fractured Atlas, and even often if they end their fiscal sponsorship and get their own 501c3 status, many organizations will transition to the 501c3 donations kit and continue to use Artfully. So that's something to keep in mind as you're using the software. Once again, I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but does anybody have any questions about how donations are kind of managed through Artfully? And Tyler, to answer your previous question, I don't believe we have plans for an Android app at this time, but we're going to touch on our feature request forum later on in the presentation, which is where kind of those kinds of requests would ultimately go that we kind of help guide Artfully's development.
Okay, thanks, Marcus.
Sure thing. Does anybody else have any questions about donation management in particular?
Not yet.
Cool.
Is this kind of, I just want to ask a technical question because I'm
Sure.
always, tax time is the worst time for my company. When these things go into kind of a database, donations and such, does it go into kind of an Excel sheet so that does it come out to something that is already calculated, making life easier for independent people? Yes, can it be integrated in QuickBooks?
So we don't have an integration with QuickBooks, but the records, all of the records of your donations and of the people that you have in your Artfully CRM of your patrons,
Mm-hmm.
all of that information can be exported, and we'll touch on that later in the presentation as well.
It's beautiful.
Awesome. Great. So now that we've talked about donations and we've talked about tickets, we'll talk about how they all come together. And ultimately, they all come together through the Artfully CRM for really managing those patron records. And so here we're going to talk about how you get that information into Artfully. So this information will come into your account through ticket sales and donations. They can be entered manually. So if you just meet someone one-off that you want to keep track of, you can add their information to your CRM. They can be imported by uploading a CSV file, and they can also be brought in through our integration with MailChimp. So what you should be seeing here is really what you'd see every time you log into Artfully. So you'll see this recent activity feed that will show all of the recent interactions that patrons have had with your organization. This is a very active account here. We've had a lot of ticket sales going on. So when you log in, you can pretty much immediately get a bird's eye view of how patrons are kind of interacting with your work through ticket sales and donations. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see a list of your recent events. And you can go in and manage those events individually there. And now what we should be seeing is an example of a patron record within Artfully. So this is really the meat and potatoes of the Artfully CRM. So Cecilia has a very active record here. Things like patron address information will automatically be created within records in the Artfully CRM when patrons buy tickets or make donations. So a lot of the data import really does kind of happen automatically as people are really experiencing your work. And then you can also add things like additional phone numbers, social media handles. This photo here is a gravatar. So if the patron has uploaded a photo and created a gravatar, that will automatically appear there. You can add tags to the patron, which are these yellow bubbles here, for any other information that you want to keep track of across potentially a span of patrons. So for example, we can see that Cecilia, we consider her a VIP, she's on our board, is interested in dance and is also a member. Oh. The kind of gold, they're these kind of gold rounded rectangles. Is everybody seeing Cecilia's patron record? Okay. All right. Melissa, I'm going to try advancing. I just tried advancing the slide deck again, Melissa. Thanks for all your patience. It's always hard to kind of get these troubleshooting things taken care of mid-presentation. I'm trying to think of what else I can try to do here. Okay. Melissa, thanks for all your fortitude with this. So we can also take notes on Cecilia's patron record. We can even star notes that we want to pin to the top. So we know that she owns a boat and wants to approve all the board records before they're sent out. And then ultimately, we also see an action feed of Cecilia's interactions with our organization. So we can see that she heard from us via email, and that she then bought 3 tickets, and then also decided to make a donation in addition to that. And then in the lower left-hand corner, we'll see the email lists that Cecilia is subscribed to. That is a part of our MailChimp integration. So whenever you send a campaign out through MailChimp, these heard actions will be added to the patron records. So it's a way to keep track of not only the tickets someone is buying, or the donations that they're making, but also when they're hearing from your email campaigns. And finally, in the upper right-hand corner, we have the sort of a revenue meter that shows totals of how many tickets Cecilia's purchased, how many donations she's made, and her ultimate lifetime contributions to the organization. It is also possible, if you have historical records that you want to import, you can bring them in through a CSV template. We have a template that you can download and fill in with your information about your patrons, and then it can be uploaded to Artfully. And so you can get that information in kind of in bulk. And then where that all really comes together is in Artfully's advanced search features. So ultimately, you can do searches for patrons. So for example, we've done a search for people that we've tagged as VIPs who are located in Minnesota and made a total minimum contribution of $200 after New Year's Day of 2013. So we have these patrons here. And so now we know who these patrons are. And then you can use the Work With button on the upper right-hand corner of the page. So we could add tags to all of these patrons. If we knew these patrons also all came to our last event, we could log an action, like a went action, to say that they all came to our last show. And then you can also export them as a CSV file. So if you wanted to, work with one of these advanced searches outside of Artfully in something like Excel, you can do that. And then you can also create a list segment. And this is kind of an interesting feature. It's a saved advanced search, which means that it's dynamic. So if we made a list segment of this particular advanced search and more people donated between New Year's Day and today, when we return to that advanced search, this list segment will have grown to include all of those people who have also donated. So they're not static searches. All right. Now I'm happy to answer any questions folks have about patron management through Artfully. Tyler, to answer your question, anybody can create an Artfully account, and even folks who are not fiscally sponsored by Fractured Atlas, you can have an account that is not connected to Fractured Atlas by any means, and just created an account for the CRM if you wanted to. But things like donations would not be available, but you would still be able to set up things like paid ticketing potentially. Oh, pardon me. Does anybody else have any questions about patron management?
You mean that if we were fiscally sponsored by somebody else, we wouldn't be able to engage you then?
You would be able to create an Artfully account, but you would not be able to take donations through Artfully. Yeah.
Well, hopefully Fractured Atlas will be able to take all 4 of my projects.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any questions about the Artfully CRM? And once again, I just want to thank everybody for all of your patience with the technical difficulties. You're all troopers.
That's the least of my problems.
I don't have any questions right now. Thanks, Marcus.
Cool. All right. All right. And then finally, nitty-gritty details. We've designed Artfully to try to be as fair with the pricing as possible, and as accessible as possible. So the Artfully CRM is free for anybody to use. It's free to set up free events. It's free to sync your MailChimp account to your Artfully account. And for online ticket purchases, there is a 3.5% credit card processing fee. And for online ticket purchases, the patron pays a $2 per ticket fee. We also have a set of beta features to sell both passes and memberships. If anybody is interested in potentially running season passes, I'm happy to set up a time to really talk about how we could set that up and see if you'd be a good fit for the beta. And those have a 5% service fee that can be paid either by the patron or rolled into the purchase price, so it's invisible and paid by the producer.
I like invisible.
So what that ultimately kind of rolls out to is for a $15 ticket, the patron would pay $17. Fractured Atlas would take $2. There would be a 53-cent charge for credit card processing, and so you, the producer, would ultimately get $14.47 in revenue from that ticket sale. For donations to 501c3 organizations, we only charge the 3.5% credit card processing fee. And for donations to sponsored projects, we're not going to double charge you for taking donations through Artfully. So only the 7% fiscal sponsorship fee for donations applies. So for a $100 donation, you'd ultimately get $93. And then we also want you to know a little bit about how Artfully is designed. So as I said at the beginning of the presentation, we held community design sessions around the country to help figure out what the creative community needed from a ticketing software. And so we practice a system of what's called agile development in sort of guiding how Artfully keeps going in the future. So we take feedback from our users and what we've learned from that. That information goes then into the design and planning stages. And finally, we implement it and release it and start the whole process over again. And not only did we have these community design sessions, but we also have a very active feature request forum. So anybody can suggest an idea that they would like to see within Artfully, and they can also have people vote on it. So ultimately, the features that have the most votes are the ones that ultimately get developed. We can see that the ones at the top here in green have been created and are completed. The ones below it are planned, but anybody can suggest an idea, producers can then vote on them, and that's how Artfully gets new features. And as I mentioned before, we do have a beta going on for both memberships and Flex and Season Passes. And if anybody is interested in trying those out, I'd be happy to set up a time to go over those with you. Yeah. And then kind of on the near horizon, we have some features for relationships and households, for kind of defining things like which patrons you have are spouses. So you could record, you know, Joan is an employee of Susan, or Jean is the kind of the solicitor for this organization. We're working on a second version of the MailChimp integration, some features for assigned seating. We have some features for fundraising campaigns that are in development, although right now they will be going to 501c3 organizations in the first iteration. And we're also working on advanced permissions management. So you can kind of decide who within your organization can access what within Artfully. All right. And that pretty much does it for our presentation here. I'm very accessible at support@artful.ly. We're also available over the phone as well. You'll probably get either me or my colleague Alessandra. Yeah, everybody, thank you so much for powering through this. I'm very sorry it was a little rough technically. Does anybody have any final questions I might be able to answer?
No, I
Great.
don't think so.
I
All
think
right.
it's amazing. You guys have done some amazing work, especially for independent filmmakers. Have you got any other filmmakers using Artfully right now?
Definitely some folks have. They have also, I've seen people ticket events, and also people use the CRM just to keep track of
Yeah.
who your patrons are. And
I like
know,
the grant proposal tracker. We're going to second and third that one because we apply for grants, and then it's really hard to keep track of a lot of things when we're doing more than one film project.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Marcus.
Sure thing. And if you guys have any questions afterwards, please feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer those questions. Awesome.
Great, thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.